sitting next to you.
Hey everybody, I'm Jim, that's Warren. You're watching Vendor Corner, brought to you by Decades Reclaimed Vintage Depot. This is show number 34. Decades is located in Central Florida, between Tampa and Orlando. If you're ever in the area, drop us a line, come by and say hi. What is Vendor Corner? Vendor Corner is a show for vendors like Warren and I in a shop like Decades Reclaimed Vintage Depot to talk about what we do. Yeah, and maybe to learn something. We learn from you guys in your comments and what you say back to us.
You get comments?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you should try reading them sometime.
Okay,
There,
I will.
okay. So that's what we're about. Tonight's topic, we only have one topic tonight. Tonight's topic is why vendors or booth owners, because a lot of malls call their vendors booth owners, but why vendors or booth owners fail in markets and malls like Decades Reclaimed Vintage Depot. That's it. That's what we're talking about. Now, recently I watched a video, and well, first of all, before I talk about that video, let's back up. Let's define what we're going to consider failing if you're a booth owner or you're a vendor in a mall or a shop. Let's define that. We're going to define that as not making money past your rent. That's it. It's past your rent. Okay. We know it's more detailed than that. We could go into cost of doing business, cost of items. We could go into taxes. We could go into cost of your time. We could do all that. Just to keep it simple, though, let's just say not making money past your rent. Why you're failing? We're considering that failing. Okay, so let me talk about that video I watched. So I watched that video, and the reasons that the person that did the video said people fail was because, two basic things, was because of fear and being overwhelmed. And even though I agree with that, and I think it was a great video, really, you should watch it if you get a chance. I think it was a great video. I agree in some parts, but I don't agree totally, because I think the reasons that we have chosen will both create the fear and the overwhelming, and then, if you want to tie them together. But we've got three reasons that we feel that booth owners or vendors fail. And so the three reasons are: number one is pricing, number two is selection, and number three is attention. All right, let's break those down, each one of them. Let's start off with pricing. Okay, pricing is a big reason why you might fail. Okay, you're too high to sell. There's always a point where people are going to buy something, and if it's too expensive, they're just not going to buy it. And our industry leads people to want to purchase things cheaper. Is that more inexpensive? I don't know. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with the question: do the vendors do any better? Can they make me a deal on this? Will they accept this offer? Do you offer any discounts? And bombarded, really bombarded. So that just that lets you know that they're looking for a bargain when they come in. So
Is that human nature?
I don't know. No, I think it's
No?
part of the. You don't go into Walmart and do that, do you?
No, I don't go into Walmart.
No,
Yeah,
well, I
okay,
mean,
yeah.
if you did, you
Right,
might go
no,
in looking
right.
for a sale
A sale.
shelf. You know what I mean? But
Right.
you're not going in, trying to bargain hunt. So it's just part of our industry. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just there. So you might be too high to sell. Okay. Maybe you're trying to get money back that you spent. Okay. Maybe you made a purchasing error. That happens quite often. People make a purchasing error. They spent too much money to begin with, and they want to get that money back.
Well,
Yeah, so, again, you price too high because you're trying to get that money back. And then along those lines, you might have a sentimental attachment to it, maybe to the item, maybe to the price. You understand what I'm saying by that?
Yeah.
You can be sentimental about the item and think it's super cool and it can't go for less, or you might be sentimental about the price. I can't let it go for less than that because it is what it is.
Yeah.
Or
Well, you invested a lot of money or more money.
Well,
than
that's
you
back
should
to
have.
the
Yeah.
purchasing
Right,
area,
but
yeah.
same thing, yeah.
Yeah. So, and my next thing up was people just won't let it go, and I think that's kind of because it's sentimental or whatever reason. And then flip the coin on that pricing, and it's too low. You're too low to make money. Which creates stocking problems. You have items that you sell and they're too low. Let's just say, for instance, all your albums were 10 cents and they were good albums. You wouldn't be making money selling the albums at 10 cents, and you would have a stocking problem. Okay?
Right.
Well, it's not even 10 cents. I think that's unrealistic. Let's do 80s, late 70s and 80s rock albums at $2 a piece. They would fly out.
Yes, they would.
They would fly out. You wouldn't be making a whole lot of money, and you would definitely have a stocking problem because you wouldn't be able to replace them. So, pricing both ways, too low, too high, trying to make money back, trying to hold on to because you think it's worth more than it is. So I think that's one of the reasons that people fail. Yeah. Let's talk quickly before we go on to the next one. How we price. We use eBay comped listings. We go on eBay for the most part. We use comp listings. We look and see what it's sold. It gives us what it's selling for, not what people are asking for it. And it also tells us the sell-through rate. eBay is worldwide. So if we've got an item and only one is sold, that's the last 90 days, I believe so, on eBay. When you're doing that, when you refine your listing and you're looking at those green numbers, that's the sold items, and that's the last 90 days. That tells you the sell-through rate is kind of low, and you got to look at where you are. Are you in a huge market? Are you in a medium-sized market? I think we're in a medium-sized market here in Polk County, Florida. Or are you in a small market, like just a small town? Those are all going to have factors on that pricing. So that's how we use it. We go by that way, and we'll talk more about. I guess we can go into that now. Let's talk about the 30-30 rule. Mm-hmm. Okay, basically, we want to buy an item that's $90 for $30 because it costs us $30 to sell it, and the person makes $30 and we make $30. And I know people are out there going, it doesn't cost 30% to sell something. Well, if you change the pricing on it, if you're more flexible in your pricing, then you can bring the item down to 50%. You take out the percentage you might have to give the shopper or whatever, and you're still making a little bit of money. So that's why we do that. But you got to be flexible. At the end of the day, you got to let it go. It's got to go. We say down the road, that's what we tell each other. I'll call Warren, hey, you got a train set, the person's offering this for you, blah, 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 blah. He says, yeah, it's gone. And then later on, he says, did it sell? And then I respond, it's down the road. Yeah, mm-hmm. So there we go. Number two reasons why a vendor or booth owner might fail is selection. Let's start off with the most obvious, not enough. Not enough. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of figure out, if you're in a mall and you get a report every month, it'll tell you the number of items you sold. You can take the total number of items you had before that, and you can figure out your percentage. Okay, I think all of us are about the same percentage of the items we sold. Maybe some of us are higher because of pricing. Back to pricing. Mm-hmm. But, I think it's usually around 10%. So if you only have 10 items and you're selling 10%, you're selling one. And you're never going to do it that way. We have booths in the shop that are packed.
Jam-packed.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And we have other ones that are very scarce. And those people who are very scarce, they sell, but because they don't have the volume, they're not selling enough. At the end of the day, they're not making more than their rent, and then they're failing. So not enough. The next one, too narrow. You're too narrow in what you have. You might only have one thing. We don't have anybody that's super narrow here, but I've gone to different shops before, and you go to a shop and there's one booth is all records. It's just records. And Warren and I both sell albums. He used to have quite a few more. But if you're just relying on one thing, or you're narrow, you only have albums in, let's say, I don't know what else would go with albums, cassette tapes, maybe.
Tape, yeah.
Yeah, you only have that or audio equipment. Maybe you
Equipment,
have
yeah, that-
albums and
yeah,
audio
yeah.
equipment. That's all you have. It's very narrow, and your selection isn't large enough, not in volume, but in, you know, what you have. You're not going to do well. You're probably not going to make it over your rent unless you go back to
Pricing.
what we said in pricing, and your albums are $2, and they're in that genre that
Right.
everybody loves, the late 70s through the 80s. And, you know, you're just blowing them out, and you've got an endless supply of them, because you're going to have the endless supply,
Yeah.
or you're going to run into
And they're hard to get now.
sourcing problems there. All right. Having too much volume, having too much in the booth, people can't see it. We've talked about that in another show. But having too much, and let's go with too much that doesn't sell. You hang on to it forever. It's sitting in that booth. It hasn't sold.
Takes
You know
up
what I mean?
space, yeah.
Maybe you've lowered the price on it. Maybe it's not a pricing issue. Maybe it's a selection of item. It's just the wrong item. You got to let it go. You got to move it out. It's taking up space. You got to move it out. You got to change it. So selection there. Having broken stuff that is broken, incomplete, selling parts and pieces, that's a sure way to fail, because nobody wants a broken item. Very few people will buy an item to fix it. Very few people. We say here at Decades Reclaim, when we're purchasing, that we want profits, not projects.
yep.
Yes. And we stole that from another YouTuber. Did
we?
you know
Yeah.
that? Yeah, Rally Roots used to say that. So Rally Roots. I don't think you've ever watched him, but yeah. So we'll give him a shout out for his saying, "Profits, not projects," and that's what we go by here at Decades Reclaim. We don't want to buy a piece of furniture that's broken to turn it into a project to sell it. We just want profits. We just want to sell the item. So it's hard to ask customers, "Come on in, buy my broken stuff
Yeah.
and fix it up yourself." There's a few exceptions. I can't think any off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, even like, you know, you've had record players in here before that don't have the stylist in them. People don't buy them.
Right.
You know, they come in and they go, you say, "Oh, it's a great record player. It's fantastic. It plays, blah, 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 blah," but you got to find the stylist. You know, their first thing is, "Where do I find one of those?"
You're
I mean,
right,
you
yeah.
deal in audio, so you know.
Right.
But they don't. So they're pass. That's what they'll, you know, they just kind of pass on it. What else with selection? You got anything else to add?
No, you'd be overcrowding again. You've got
Yeah,
to
we-
make sure people can
Yeah,
get
we
through
kind
your
of
aisles.
talked about that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that next.
Oh,
We're
I
gonna-
will?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
I jumped.
in the next segment, well, you didn't. I mean, it's part of selection too. In the next segment, we're going to talk about attention. Okay? So, first of all, you have to pay attention to pricing and your selection, but then you need to pay attention. So, selection or pricing, selection, and attention. You have to spend time in your booth. Yeah, bottom line is you have to spend in time in your booth. You have to pay attention. You have to know what is selling. You have to look at your report that you get every month. Or, you know, some of you can go online and see what you sold. You have to pay attention to that. Not just, "I'm making $1 now. What did I sell?" You have to pay attention and move your stuff around.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Warren just recently, you just did a big flip.
Oh, yeah.
Moved a bunch of stuff around. And man, his sales like ticked up
They did.
as soon as you did it.
Yeah.
And we crack up all the time. Those of us that move stuff on a regular basis, we'll come in and we'll move something that's been here a while that we're almost at the point where it's been here too long. We're getting ready to kick it out, and we'll move it and it'll sell the next
Like
day.
that.
It's
Yeah.
just funny.
Yeah.
It's just funny. But you got to do it. You have to pay attention, and you have to move stuff around. You have to give your booth attention. Booth layout. There we go. When you were talking about having too much in your booth. If you have too much in your booth, and we've talked about this in another show, people can't get in. They won't go in. If they won't go in, they can't see anything. It doesn't matter that your pricing is good. It doesn't matter that you've selected well and you've got items that sell.
You failed.
They're not going to go in, and so you're not going to sell anything. So, you know, look at your layout that you have when you're doing that. Are you, you know, just cramming stuff in there, which is okay, because we talked about that. You know, people do like to dig as long as they can get in, or do you have it really pretty and little vignettes everywhere in your booth, and that helps sell too, because we have people who have mass amounts of stock in our shop, and then we have people who have the vignette that looks like a showcase.
And it looks pretty.
Yeah, and they both sell, but the bottom line is people have to be able to get in there.
Keep it
Let's
off the
talk
keep it
about
off
other
the floor,
things,
I
that
think,
not
yeah.
paying attention to. Well, we kind of said it, when the item's been there too long,
Mm-hmm.
you got to move it on. You got to take it out. If you're not paying attention, you'll just let that same item sit there, week after week, month after month,
Year
year
after
after
year.
year after yeah. Another thing you need to pay attention is tags. You got to see, is the tag gone? We have an issue here at Decades with missing tags a lot. Now, some of them are coming off. You hate to say it, but maybe some customers are taking them off. But for the most part, the vendors are just not paying attention. When they bring it in, they just haven't put the tag on it to begin with.
I found that being down here in Florida and coming from up north, that the humidity and the heat, you tape it on.
Definitely, the
it definitely-
tape comes
yeah,
off of it.
yeah.
But I think for the most part, we have a lot of vendors that price in the shop, and they bring in 20 things and price 10.
Yeah, well,
Price at home. That's the easiest way to do it. Price it and put it in a container to go to the shop. It's complete.
right.
And then maybe that'll help you make sure your tag is incomplete, because along with not paying attention to the price tag is what's on the price tag. There's your vendor number there, there's your description, and then wait, hold on, there's no price.
Yeah.
No price. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you gotta pay attention. You gotta pay attention to your booth, to your items, to your tags, to your lighting.
Oh, yeah.
Is your booth dark and people don't want to go in? Is it creepy and scary and they're not going
We
in?
get creepy and scary at Halloween.
Yeah, there you go. So there we go. We have. Do you remember the three now? Pricing, selection, and attention.
got-
We think those three things are the reason that people fail. Now, any one of those or all of those can create fear, and overwhelming people, because they don't know how to price, they don't know how to select, and they don't know how to stage or put it in there. They're not paying attention. They're not making sales, which goes back to being fearful that you're gonna fail. And if you're fearful you're gonna fail, you're probably gonna fail. So, so that video that I originally watched that really started all this conversation was about why they fail in fear and overwhelming. And I agree, because if you take the points that we just said, the pricing, the selection, and the attention, any one of those, if you fail in any one of those areas, or you're lacking in any one of those areas, can create fear and create you, being overwhelmed. Yeah.
We don't want to spend any more money out of
Yeah.
our pocket.
Yep. Bottom line is, this business isn't for everybody. You do have to go in it open-minded. The best solution to most of those problems, if you have questions, is other vendors in your shop. Ask them, especially the successful ones, and take what they say. If you're going to hold your ground and go, no, I'm not going to listen to them, and blah, 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 and you fail, that's maybe why you're failing. So, look within, don't look to the shop. Here at Decades Reclaim Vintage Depot, when vendors fail, they often blame the shop for it. But the shop as a whole makes money, and there's vendors that make a lot of money. So if one can do it, somebody else can do it. There's no magic to what the top vendors here at Decades do.
I think when I got into this, the beginning was just a little hobby. But it's a business.
But at the end of the day, everybody wants to succeed. And like we said, that's why we backed it. You're just making more of your rent. Because if you're just doing it as a hobby, that's all you care about.
Right.
Just making more than you paid out, And so if you're doing that, you're considering yourself successful. We didn't go into, like making 3 times your rent or 4 times your rent to be successful, because I think a lot of people like you are maybe just in it for a hobby, just something to do, and they just want to sell more than they're putting out. So that's it. So check your pricing, check your selection, and pay attention to your stuff. And you should be successful.
We're working for.
Yeah, that's what we do it for.
Yep.
All right, I'm Jim. That's Warren. You've been watching Talking Vintage Vendor Corner here on YouTube. If you want to see more of what Decades has to offer, you can check them out on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on the web at decadesreclaim.com. If you emailed us, we could give you our newsletter that goes out every month. And
We're coming in, sign
you
up.
can watch more of these shows on YouTube. We have the Vendor Corner ones, and then we have our Talking Vintage. This is Talking Vintage Vendor Corner, but we have just our Talking Vintage shows that we do every week for our local market in Central Florida, and you can watch those all. Most of those are listed here on YouTube. They're not in any particular order. The latest ones are probably the oldest ones. I don't know. Yeah, so check it out. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Jim Warren. You've been watching Vendor Corner. Thanks a lot and have a great night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
It didn't stop.
didn't
Dang
stop.
it. Dang it. Yeah. Tell him a joke. Tell him the ant joke. Why don't ants get sick?
Because they have antibodies.
No, they have little antibodies.
Little antibodies.
Little antibodies.
Little
Do you remember
antibodies.
another joke?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
What joke? Come on, you
Why
gotta
did
remember
the-
that.
I don't-
Why do hummingbirds hum?
Because they can
Not remember the words.
Yeah, see?
Got another joke?
I don't do
Got any
this
more
well.
jokes?
No.
Why did the chicken go to the seance?
You told him. I forgot.
get to the other
To
side.
get to the other side. See? See?
Hey, we're done.
Okay, we're done
Bye.
now. We're done now.